I don't know how many of you were able to see how the children left this morning, but it was lovely. Michelle has created some signs with patience and love and respect and things on them that they went out with, and I thought what a nice God moment to see that this morning. I should also mention before I start, you would have found a little card on every seat this morning, and we are going to be using those, so make sure that you have one close for a little bit later in the worship service. And there are some on the front seats where nobody ever sits if you're needing one. So please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. What is the most important law? What is the number one rule to follow? What is essential in determining how to live our lives? Big questions. And it seems to me that our human nature demands answers to these big questions. We want to understand our purpose in this life, and what it means to be in right relationship with ourselves, with each other, and with this world of which we are a part. We yearn for meaning as conscious creatures of this universe. It is intriguing to me that in the reading today, it is a gentle, simple scribe that asked Jesus the big one. The religious authorities have been pummeling Jesus with questions about the details of the laws, of which there are over 600. But the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Herodians that were all gathered there are coming from the position that they already have the right answers. And they were trying to entrap Jesus so that they might legally arrest him according to the law. They aren't, it seems, really interested in the truth. They aren't interested in improving the lives of the people or of the wider world. They aren't interested in God or in the deep yearning that is our human condition. They are afraid. They are afraid of losing power and position, threatened by this simple peasant from the town of Nazareth. And their fear turns them away from God, turns them away from love, and turns them toward a self-centered, ego-driven path that becomes life-taking in more ways than one. It is the scribe, the one whose job it is to help the people understand the laws and rules they are forced to obey. It is the scribe who wants a real answer, an answer that will make life better for him and for the people as well. It is the scribe who, rather than seeing Jesus as a threat, sees him instead as full of wisdom and able to provide the answer he is looking for. I wonder if this scribe might have gone to the religious leaders before, maybe many times, and asked the same question. If he did, it would seem that the authorities were unable to give him the answer he was seeking. And so he asks, "Teacher, which commandment is first of all?" Jesus' answer comes directly out of the Torah, out of the Hebrew Scriptures, out of the laws. Deuteronomy 6:4-5. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And Leviticus 19:18. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. For the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Herodians, there can be no dispute with Jesus because he is quoted directly from the books of the law. For the scribe, there is a new understanding. As Jesus crystallizes the truth and the core value that's buried within the very laws. We could say end of story and move on, except for one important thing. Although Jesus is quoting directly from the Torah, he brings a new wisdom to what it means to love God and what it means to love your neighbor. And he demonstrates through his own way of being how to live in love in the world. Jesus demonstrated throughout his life that to love God with all your heart, mind, strength, and soul is to be in personal relationship with God, rather than having your experience of God mediated by religious authorities, by a church or temple. And Jesus has also demonstrated by the way he created community that to love your neighbor is about compassionate relationship with everyone and anyone. That is the kingdom. The neighbor no longer was determined by who is in or who is out according to the laws. By naming love as the core value, Jesus overrules all the other laws and rules that diminish life for the people and that distance people from a relationship with God. This is the new order in the kingdom. And so what does it mean to love in this context, and who then is our neighbor? Most often we have interpreted love of neighbor through Luke's eyes. Luke, unlike Mark, moved this passage about the greatest commandment to early in Jesus' ministry. It comes very early in his gospel, and it's followed by the story of the Good Samaritan. The act of love and the nature of neighbor is clear here. But Mark, who wrote well before Luke, places this passage in Jesus' final week in Jerusalem. I believe that for Mark, the love Jesus talks about isn't about love in an emotional sense, but rather it is about love as commitment. Deep, deep commitment. Although Jesus didn't know he would actually be arrested and crucified before the week was out, he did know that life was going to get much harder for him and for his followers now that they were in Jerusalem, in the city. Jesus was calling his community. He was calling them to be fully committed to the Spirit of God that grounds each one in compassion, and he was calling them to be fully committed to loving all their neighbors, committed to that love. Loving your neighbor means to be fully committed to the cooperative well-being of every other. It is one thing to say you love and feel love for another. We can do that fairly easily. But Jesus was calling them and us to the commitment of our whole being to that love. Jesus was calling his followers to total commitment to the God Spirit and total commitment to all others, even to death. That was the quality of his commitment to love. To die for God, to die for the community, to die for the other. And my friends, it was his commitment to love that gave him the greatest gift, a deep and abiding contentment with his life. And isn't it that deep contentment on our human journey that we all long for? In the 21st century, our understanding of the nature of God and our knowledge about this planet and this universe that we are very much a part of has changed dramatically since the time of Jesus. We have come to see that God is not a being set apart from the universe and our world, but is rather at the very heart of all of life, even all matter as we know it. We have also come to see that human beings are not separate from the rest of the universe. We are not the reason for the universe, but we are a species intricately and intimately connected to this earth, birthed out of nearly 14 billion years of evolution. This understanding must now shape our relationship to God and to neighbor. What hasn't changed in 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, who knows how many thousand years, what hasn't changed is the fundamental truth about love. Love as the direction of all creation. Love is the singular characteristic of the Spirit of God, the very heart of all of life. And love is the way of cooperative relationship with all our relations. All our relations, human and other than human. We are being called to commit ourselves in love to the God presence within all things. We are being called to commit ourselves in love to life-giving relationship with all our relations. Our world seems to be doing a very poor job of this commitment to love. And yet, I see and I experience signs of this commitment to love welling up all over this planet, even in the most difficult of places and circumstances. Like Jesus, we must not be discouraged, but rather be willing to take the commitment to love seriously. It is in communities like this one where hope and peace and great love is possible that commitment to an even deeper love can begin. And we too, I believe, will find contentment in our personal and collective commitment to opening to that spirit of love in our midst, to the God presence in our midst, that we might truly, truly love all our relations.